Yeah, I'd say it's not running too good. I suspect there's some trash in the carburetor. In this video, I'm going to show you how to take apart this carburetor and clean it, put it back together, and get it running like new again. I'm also going to show you where all the linkages go. That way there's no confusion about that. Okay, so without further ado, let's dive right in. All right, so to get this carburetor off right here, we got to get this shroud off of the top of the motor so we can get to everything. Get the air filter out. And take these two screws out right here, 1/4-inch head on them. Now we'll get the bolts out for the fuel pump. And this fan shroud. They're all 5/16. Next we got to get the 6 bolts out from around this. They're 3/8 head. You don't have to take them all the way out, just back them out. And there's 2 more up here by the gas tank, right here and right here, that I've already taken loose. Next, let's go ahead and get the fuel line off from the fuel pump and have a rag ready because there's going to be some spillage. Next, let's get this vane out of here. It's a 3/8 nut right on top. The little spring goes right here on the intake manifold. Get this rubber gas tank vent from behind here. Will make this easier. Just like so. Next, we're going to undo the choke right here. Just push it out like so. And here's the top side of that same lever. There we go. And while we're on this side, let's undo the solenoid. Now this last linkage right here will have to wait till we get the carburetor loose, okay? All right, so let's undo these 4 intake bolts. They're either 3/8 or you can use a Torx 30, I believe it is. If it's your first time getting them loose, there is a little bit of Loctite on there, so they're gonna come out a little bit hard. Now this one that's up top here, kind of on the driver's side of the intake, pretty hard to get a socket on there straight, so I usually use a wrench. It's a little slower, but all right, we're just about freed up. Still got that 1 linkage to go. All right, so let's get the spring loose. Notice the direction this is pointed at. If you get that backwards, it's not going to fit too good. And then you're going to have to finagle the carburetor around to get the other part loose. There we go. A little bit of a challenge, but it comes out. All right, so we got to get all this plastic stuff off of here. Go ahead and pull these 2 nuts off. These are 7/16. Set that aside. Now my gasket is already pretty loose right here, so it's no problem. But if yours isn't so loose, unless you want to replace it, just kind of find a place where it is loose and stick a razor blade under there and carefully kind of do like this and slowly work that loose. 9 times out of 10, you can save that gasket. Now these heads right here are a reverse Torx called an E-Torx. It's an E5 right here. Now if you don't have an E-Torx socket, a 4mm 6-sided socket will work too. But I have the E-Torx, so we're going to use it. All right, so I've already cracked the bowl screws loose and taken it outside and drained the gas out of the bowl. I didn't really want all that gas stinking up my garage. You might want to do the same thing. Do this outside. And there's our bowl. Inside of that doesn't look too bad. Something got in there. Now, if you suspect you've got trash in your carburetor, it's probably a good idea to take the gas tank and flush it out, replace the fuel lines and the fuel filter. That way you don't recontaminate your newly cleaned carburetor. All right, so let's go ahead and remove this float right here. Now my bowl and my float actually look pretty good, but what if it doesn't look so good? Like this one here is actually pretty nasty looking. What I usually like to do is spray a little brake clean in there. Carburetor cleaner works good too. And take a piece of steel wool and just use that wet brake clean and just kind of go around in there, and that will clean that up pretty good. See that? It's looking pretty good already, just needs a little bit more work. You can do the same thing to the float. All these areas around the carburetor that are all nasty, like this right here. Just go ahead and spray that. Clean it up. You can also use a Dremel tool with a wire wheel. Looks a lot better. But my carburetor actually doesn't look too bad, so there just must be a stray piece of trash in there. All right, so moving on, we're going to get this gasket off of here real careful. There we go. Now, if you do wind up damaging your gasket, or if it's just too tight, you can probably just leave it on there. But they do make a rebuild kit for these, so you can replace that gasket. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some brake clean and spray over this whole carburetor. Any little holes like this, you'll want to make sure you spray through, blow air behind them. Now, in here is a series of holes right there. You got to clean those little holes out right there. That will cause a big surge and all kinds of unpleasant things if that's clogged up. So what I like to do with that is spray a brake clean in there, like so, and go behind that with some air. Make sure that's real nice and clean. Also, this emulsion tube right here has some real fine holes in it. You'll want to take a torch cleaning set, like this right here, that's got some little small rods in there, and use that to poke through all these little holes, every one. See, like that? And when you're done with every one of those, take your brake clean with a straw and then blow some air through there. Just like that. Make sure and go through the middle. So let's not forget about this jet that's in the middle of this. Go ahead and clean that too. And make sure it's clean with the rod. And we'll go ahead and press our gasket back in here. Also take notice there's a round O-ring right here around that, so make sure not to lose that. And we'll go ahead and put this back in place. This part of the float right here goes down in this hole right here, so that's how you line that up. Now what I like to do to keep that gasket assembly from falling out of there is I'll hold that upside down and I'll put it together like this. There we go, that way everything stays together. Now one other thing you should check here is your solenoid. Make sure that's moving real easy like that. Sometimes if those things sit for a while, you'll get a bunch of gook in the bottom of the carburetor, and it will cause that to not open and close very nice. And well, if that happens, usually you got to replace the solenoid. Let's go ahead and put our bowl back on there. All right, let's get this puppy back together. Now make sure not to put your intake on upside down. It will go on upside down. One way you can tell for sure is the spring for that vane that I took off earlier is facing up, so there's no mistake right there. The old gasket is still on there. I never took it off. Let's go ahead and put our gasket back, making sure that little hole is lined up right there. And that's it. Put the nuts on. We're ready to put it back on the motor. But before we do, I wanted to show you these linkages one more time. This one right here needs to be up like this. That way when you put it on, you can swing it over just like so, and that goes to that vane that's up by the flywheel. The one with this spring goes right here. Notice the way it's curved down here. It's going that way, all right? Then the spring pulls down and hooks on. And then this one is your choke over here. Now when that's bolted to the motor, this little Z right here, or bend, that's facing the motor. That way it can clip onto that choke right there. That's all there is to it. Looks like it's back to its old self and it's running great. Okay, I hope this video has been helpful. Thanks for watching.